look at this. Ugh. I'm such a fool. I was overdue for a haircut before the world went into lockdown, and now this is just, there. We'll just have to deal with it. How do I look? Still look cute? Still look cute. I look cute in the mirror. What's this video about? Alright, hello humans, my name is Dael Kingsmill. Things have changed a little since my last video. Apologies that I've been gone for such a long time. I had a bunch of medical whatsits happening, unrelated to the world's medical whatsits. But we don't want to talk about that right now. Sometimes you just gotta go where everybody knows your name, and other times you gotta go somewhere where you can think about literally anything else. So let's think about warlocks instead, huh? I have been thinking an awful lot about what happens when a warlock is in breach of contract. Because it's that Faustian deal that's at the center of the warlock as a class, and we cannot afford to forget about it. That's where all of the narrative juice lies. And so I think the dramatic arc for a warlock character, really, it should all be heading towards that question, shouldn't it, of the contract, what it asks of them and how much they're willing to give. Everything is leading to this one fatal decision. You know, so you start out as a warlock, you've made this deal, this pact, and so far you're getting everything that you wanted out of it. But you do have to offer something in return. For a long time this is probably pretty small things. And I mean, sidebar, this isn't what we're talking about today, but I think it's really important that DMs remember, if one of your characters is a warlock, I think having them complete little tasks on behalf of their patron is a significant thing that you need to remember. I mean, you can say that they keep having nightmares involving their patron, and that's fun and fine, but I think there have to be physical acts in this plane of existence that your warlock is carrying out on behalf of their patron. And they might seem small, you know, it's give this sealed letter to this person in the city you're going to, or leave a necklace in a cave halfway up this mountain, or I don't know, carry out this small blood sacrifice of a rabbit or something on the next blood moon. You know, things that don't even necessarily seem that sinister on their own, but maybe just implying that this warlock is just one piece of a greater orchestra. There's some grand plan going on that they have their part that they have to play on behalf of the conductor. And so these tasks, these little favors that you're doing, they seem like a small price to pay in exchange for the incredible knowledge that you're gaining. Ancient secrets of the universe. And all you have to do is play messenger? Great, that's sick. But those tasks, they're gonna demand a little bit more of you every time. You're working your way up the ranks, you're proving your loyalty the further you get, and then one day you're gonna be asked to do something that does cross your moral boundaries. And it's that day that your character chooses what kind of a person they are. Now, no matter which direction you choose, whether you choose to commit to your path as a warlock, serving the patron, the powerful entity that you've signed on with, or whether you choose to go against that and betray that patron after they have fulfilled their part of the bargain. You know, either way, there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of juice in that narratively for your character. So choose whichever way you want. But mechanically, the drama isn't necessarily supported if you do choose to go against contract. So I wanna work that out a little bit. P.S. I should mention that I fell behind on Critical Role 1,000 years ago and I gave up on catching up. But when I did briefly mention this to my sister, who's sort of still keeping up, she said, "Oh, is this because of what happened to Ford?" And I'm like, "What happened to Ford?" So if something's happening there, this is, you know, any resemblance to happenings in Critical Role are purely coincidental. Basically what I'm talking about here is what I've started calling the Pact burner warlock. You know, something inspired, something in the vein of the Oathbreaker Paladin, but I didn't want it to be, I don't want this to be its own class, and I don't want this to be its own subclass. I've not loved it when I've seen like a warlock who breaks their pact, and so now they can't continue being a warlock anymore. And so they just like multi-class into a different class. It feels like the go-to solutions I've seen are either you multi-class into a different class and now you grow the rest of your character in that class, but you still just have access to all your Warlock stuff that's there. Or alternatively, you lose access to all your Warlock stuff, which it sucks. I mean, that would be the worst. As a player, I would be sad to have that happen. So I wanted to create something a little bit different. I've started calling it a shadow class because I want it to be something that it casts off of the actual class. So it's not its whole thing on its own. You can't just play as a Pact Burner Warlock from jump, but it's like your class transforms into it given a certain narrative trigger. So, the Pact Burner Warlock. Everything needs a cool name. Cool names are important. What I want for this shadow class is for it to have kind of a fugitive man or woman or person on the run vibe. You've made your choice, you've turned on your patron, and they're not gonna forget that. You know, you can't just decide to leave the mob. You know what I'm saying? You leave when you're dead. So if you do decide to leave, you're always gonna be hunted. So I want that to be the vibe, but the real problem here is how do you reflect that kind of a struggle in positive mechanics. So here's some of the things that I've come up with. We've got, I've given some cool titles here too. Ooh la la. Stolen Secrets. Your arcane research and the ancient secrets taught to you by your former patron have given you facility with spells even without a direct connection between you and any otherworldly beings. Basically, you get to keep any spells that you've already learnt, but your spellcasting modifier changes from charisma to intelligence. There's a lot of emphasis in the flavor text for the Warlock in the player's handbook that talks about them being, you know, they're researchers, they're sort of eager for this ancient knowledge, they're looking for knowledge. But then their spellcasting modifier is charisma for some reason. It's always bothered me, but I let it slide because it's like, oh yeah, it's their connection, there's a social element to this, you know, it's their connection with this otherworldly being that's giving them their power. And so I was like, oh, perfect opportunity to flip that and be like, okay, now it's about what they learned while they were with them, because they don't have that connection anymore. They severed that. But what secrets have they stolen? And I like that idea too, because they didn't steal it. They was given as part of this contract, but now that they're in breach of contract, I like the idea that now they're considered by their former patron and by the cult of that former patron or associates of that former patron. It's like, you stole this from us because you haven't fulfilled the contract that you signed. Now you are considered to be a thief. So now it's intelligence, because now it's about what you learned and how clever you are. Pact boons, I think, are a cool thing. At first I was like, oh, well, you'd have to lose your Pact boons because they were bestowed on you specifically as a gift for your loyalty, for your proven service. But that would suck, wouldn't it? So let's not do that. No, this is it. This is the time to really emphasize that idea of thievery, right? You still have your Book of Shadows, you still have your Pact weapon, you still have your familiar, but those things are now considered stolen property. You have stolen this artifact from the Great Archfey or whoever, and they friggin' want it back. Also, this idea of the forces you used to work for actively sort of searching for you, hunting you down, is neat for the DM just because it means that, hey, if I need to throw in a random encounter while you're traveling somewhere, I can make it cultists and no one's gonna blink an eye. They're all blink an eye, bat an eye. Bat an eyelash, blink an eye, blink an eyelash. No one's gonna question it. They're all gonna be like, oh, it's Joe's fault because he went and turned on his patron. I will say though, ooh, gotta turn up the dial of like, this is a danger zone. You still have your familiar, your weapon, your grimoire, but you lose a couple of the abilities associated with it, in the sense of like, if you banish your familiar, your familiar's here with you on the material realm, but if you were to banish it the way you usually do, it's gonna be hijacked by the patron and the patron's servants, and they're gonna take it back. You can't make a new weapon, your Pact weapon now, because you would need the blessing of your patron to do that. So it's stuck as whatever the last weapon you had it as. That's it. You've still got the danger of, if it's more than 5 feet away from you for however long, an hour, whatever it is, if that happens and it disappears, it's disappeared. So you gotta like watch out for them. Keep a close eye on it. If you die and your grimoire burns to ashes, you can't get another one. So you gotta be careful. You gotta actually like look after that stuff now, because you ain't got no sugar daddy. But all the other good stuff stays the same. I do think it's worth thinking about. Some people might like this, some people might not. If your Warlock familiar is one of the unusual ones, you know, the pseudo-dragon, the imp, those things, that's much more specifically tied to the patron, right? So there's that idea of maybe these ones wouldn't be as loyal to you. So maybe talk through with your DM and see, or if you are a DM, talk through with your Warlock, I don't know. Communication! Talk it through and decide whether you would be interested in a storyline wherein that familiar creature betrays you. Maybe it stays and it spies on you for a while, and then it turns out that it's been working for your former patron all this time, and you know you've fallen into a trap because of it. That sort of a storyline is available and is very cool. Or alternatively, this creature specifically, you know, attached to your former patron in some way, chooses loyalty to you over loyalty to its kind, over loyalty to its, like, creators, its masters, those sorts of things. And that's got its own sort of drama and sentimentality and attachment. If your Pact boon, artifact, or creature get sort of hijacked and taken back to the home plane of your former patron, I do think it's a cool space to include, like, a heist, wherein, you know, your players can specifically venture into hell to get back your familiar that's trapped somewhere in the palace of your devilish patron or whatever. You know, room for adventure hooks here. What I'm suggesting is that you make things dire but not unfixable, particularly when it comes to familiars and those sorts of things. Players are very, very attached, so give them room to win it back. In the game I play in the other day, one of the other characters is a warlock, and I did throw the javelin of lightning through her familiar raven at some point. She did not speak to me for half the game. So just speaking a little bit from experience there. That was a raven, she could summon that raven back. I feel like I did nothing wrong. I killed 2 skeletons. Now, one of the trickiest things with this idea of the shadow class is that you're keeping everything you already got. So I'm really encouraging that this is something that you encounter, you know, mid-campaign. So the idea is that you will have, you know, X number of levels as a warlock under your belt before you do this. You're aiming for like level 7 probably at minimum for them to suddenly turn this on its head. And part of that encouragement, I'm hoping, is coming from the idea that you're keeping stuff that you've already learnt as a warlock, or you're keeping a lot of it. Not all of it, we'll get to that. You're keeping a lot of these things, like you've been taught secrets. It's not as though you are getting every single power directly from your patron and then you are channeling it out. No, I prefer the idea, this you know, you're learning secrets, you're learning ancient knowledge, and it's like, once you prove yourself a little bit more, the patron has taught you a little bit more. They're handing you a bit of ancient lore as a treat, and you can take that secret information. Now you have it. They can't take it back. They gave it to you, and now you know it. So I think spells that you've learned, eldritch invocations that you've learned, I think those things that you already have up to that point stay. So then the question becomes, what do you get in replacement of those things during level up from now on, now that you're a Pact burner? I think Eldritch Invocations is going to be the trickiest spot, because I think they need to be replaced with something very similar to Eldritch Invocations in function, but they can't be too overly mystical now, because you're on your own now. You're not learning any new secrets of the universe. You're just using the secrets that you've already learned to do stuff. There is that thing in the flavor text of the Warlock that talks about them being much more focused on not solely spellcasting, but spellcasting mixed with like actual physical, like blood and cuts combat. And so I wonder whether replacing Eldritch Invocations with something that's more combat focused would be the way to go. But, you know, it just hasn't clicked yet. So specifically, I think the things that you would lose as a Pact burner would be, you would lose the abilities you get from your patron directly. So the Archfey, the Fiend, the whatever, is there a word before Fiend? The big old Fiend, the great old one, those abilities you no longer have access to. Those came directly from your patron. So I was thinking about what we could replace them with, and here's kind of what I landed on. So multi-planar fugitive, you have turned on your patron, severing them from your services and taking their knowledge with you. While you've lost some abilities connected directly with the being you used to beseech for power, you've learned through your service the inner workings of your former patron's followers and similar extraplanar creatures, and can twist these into weaknesses in order to defend yourself. So the kind of things I was thinking are you could get resistances to specific types. So if you're, you know, the Nemesis of Hell, these are the names I gave them now. Instead of having the Archfey, the big old fiend, and the Great Old One, now they're Enemy of the Archfey, Nemesis of Hell, and Adversary of the Great Old One. So names, it's fun to name things. So if you're a Nemesis of Hell, you get resistance to fire damage. If you're an Adversary of the Great Old One, you get resistance to psychic damage. If you're an enemy of the Archfey, you get advantage on illusion saving throws. The idea being that you've worked within this system for long enough that you kind of understand how it works. And as a result of that, you can kind of evade it. The level 6 ability might be replaced with being able to counterspell specific schools of magic, or I'm wondering whether to do it for like all spells of that school, or to make it spell-like abilities and sort of, what's it called? Internal spell casting? Innate spell cast? That thing. You know, like you're a Sphinx and you just have some spells on hand because you're a Sphinx. That stuff. But it's like, if that spell is of the illusion school, you can do something akin to counterspell. I just think that'd be a cool thing to get. And because it's the level 6 ability, you can only do it once per short rest or long rest. 10th level ability, I don't know exactly where to put this, so it might end up not being here, but I like the idea of the Warlock, the Pact Burner, now having something akin to primeval awareness, but they can only search for their particular sort of enemies now. So if you were an enemy of the Archfey, you can do something like primeval awareness, sense what Fey creatures are within the next 6 miles. If you are a Nemesis of Hell, you can do your little primeval awareness and search to see if there are any fiends anywhere within 6 miles. You know, have those things so that it's like you're always aware, you're always on the lookout for people who might be coming to kill you. You know, little things like that. I have an idea for 14th level, but I'm not sold on it. So I'm maybe not gonna say it out loud because I'm not sold on it. I'm working on it. I'll get there. I've almost certainly accidentally skipped over something. But that's the way of the world. That's everything I have to say about Pact Burner Warlocks right now, I think. So yeah, they're taking the stuff they learned, they're still applying that magic, but they're also twisting a bunch of the things they learned into methods of warding against their former comrades. How are you? Are you doing fine? I hope everyone's keeping safe. Everyone keeps safe, all right? That's when you stay inside to stay safe. Did I have something else I had to say? I'm almost certain I did, but I've forgotten what it is. So we're just gonna live with it. Apart from that, I do believe that's it. Email this to your grandma to give her another reason to stay indoors. Oh, that was it. What are other videos you want me to make? Because we're all inside right now. I'll have plenty of time to make more videos right now. So leave things you're eager to hear about in the comments below. That's it. I'm done. Bye. Hydrate and chill out. Doctor's orders. It's me, I'm your doctor now.